Admiral Z. Kate Hoon of the Galactic Confederation had seen many species join the interstellar community in his 300-year career. The two-legged mammals from the third planet of the Sol system seemed good enough. They were clever, able to change, and surprisingly tough for how fragile they looked. Their planet was called a Class C civilization. This meant they had enough technology for first contact, but were still basic in terms of faster-than-light travel and quantum science. The official first contact meeting was going as planned in the United Nations building on Earth. Ambassador Greg Miller, an experienced diplomat with gray-streaked hair and a firm handshake, had been chosen to speak for humanity. Next to him stood Dr. Olivia Ward, a scientist whose work on gravity waves had caught the attention of the Confederation 3 years earlier. "We welcome Earth into the galactic community," Admiral Z. Kate Hoon said through his translation device, his four-armed tentacles making the greeting motion. "Your species shows great promise." Ambassador Miller nodded with respect. "On behalf of humanity, we are honored to join the Confederation and learn from your advanced civilizations." The formal part continued with talks about space trade deals, sharing technology and cultural exchange programs. Everything was going perfectly until Admiral Z. Kate Hoon's junior diplomat, Kvex, tried to make what the briefing papers called human small talk. Kvex walked up to Dr. Ward during the reception. "Your engines are quite basic. Our calculations show it would take your fastest ships about 70,000 of your years to reach even the closest Confederation outpost without our help." Dr. Ward smiled politely. "Yes, that's why we're excited about the technology exchange. The possibilities are amazing." Kvex's skin changed to a shade of purple, showing curiosity. "Your species seems remarkably calm about the technology gap. Most species feel what we call cosmic inadequacy upon first contact. We're hopeful problem solvers," Dr. Ward replied with a shrug. "When faced with challenges, we just keep asking ourselves, what's the worst that could happen?" The translation device made a strange clicking sound, having trouble with the saying. Kvex's four eyes blinked one after another. "What is this idea? The worst that could happen. Is this a human way to assess risk?" Ambassador Miller, hearing the conversation, tried to step in, but Dr. Ward was already answering. "It's just something we say when we're thinking about possibilities. We imagine worst-case scenarios to prepare for them." Kvex's skin now pulsed with academic interest. "Fascinating. Please tell me more about this method. What is the worst that could happen regarding, for example, faster-than-light travel development?" Several high-ranking Confederation officials were now listening closely. Ambassador Miller winced. The briefing materials had specifically warned against discussing possible disasters with the new allies. Dr. Ward, not aware of the diplomatic mistake, smiled and began, "Well, I suppose the worst case would be accidentally creating a tear in space-time that collapses our solar system into a black hole, but that's why we'd run computer tests first." A dead silence fell over the reception. Admiral Z. Kate Hoon's translation device gave out a high-pitched alarm sound, and the Confederation representatives all took 3 steps backward. It was the start of what would later be known across the galaxy as the human problem. The next morning, a meeting was called at the Human Embassy. Ambassador Miller paced the room, clearly upset. Dr. Ward sat quietly, still confused about what had happened. "Do you realize what you've done?" Miller asked, running a hand through his hair. "The Confederation delegates have requested an emergency meeting with their home government. They seem deeply disturbed because I mentioned a space-time tier?" Dr. Ward asked. "It was just a theoretical worst-case scenario. Any civilization with faster-than-light technology would have safeguards against that," Miller sighed. "According to our cultural briefing, most Confederation species have strong mental blocks against imagining large-scale disasters. Their evolution favored optimism and present-focused thinking." "That seems like a disadvantage," Dr. Ward said. "How do they prepare for problems?" "They have advanced prediction algorithms and AI systems that handle risk assessment. The organic beings themselves rarely engage with catastrophic possibilities directly," Miller explained. Your casual mention of solar system collapse was the equivalent of describing graphic violence at a children's birthday party. Dr. Ward's eyes widened. I had no idea. Should I apologize? Before Miller could answer, his communication device chimed. The message was brief. The Confederation delegation requested Dr. Ward's presence for what they called further exploration of human cognitive patterns. Miller looked worried. They want to understand how you think. This could either save the situation or make it much worse. 2 hours later, Dr. Ward found herself in a room with Cavex and 3 Confederation scientists. Their skin colors shifted between shades of blue, green, and purple as they spoke among themselves. Dr. Ward, Cavex began, we would like to understand more about this human thought process. When you imagine worst-case scenarios, does it cause emotional distress? Sometimes, she admitted. But it's usually balanced by the comfort of making plans to prevent those outcomes. Fascinating, said one of the scientists, whose name tag translated as Plinza. And is this a common human thought pattern? Very common, Dr. Ward nodded. We have sayings like, hope for the best, plan for the worst, and better safe than. Sorry, children's stories often include warnings about preparing for disasters. The scientists exchanged looks, their skin now showing patterns Dr. Ward couldn't interpret. And regarding space exploration, Cavex continued, what other worst case scenarios have humans considered? Dr. Ward thought for a moment. Well, there's encountering hostile aliens, cosmic radiation exposure, psychological effects of long-term isolation, equipment failures, resource depletion. She paused, noticing their skin colors had all shifted to a pale white. Is something wrong? Cavex's voice was quieter now. You consider all these possibilities routinely? Without professional necessity? Of course, Dr. Ward replied. How else would we prepare properly? Actually, in our science fiction stories, we tell about possible futures. We explore even more extreme scenarios. The meeting ended abruptly. After that, the Confederation representatives excused themselves, saying they needed to report back to their superiors. That evening, unusual activity was observed around the Confederation's ships in orbit. Their energy signatures had changed, and communications with Earth had decreased by 80%. They're preparing to leave, Ambassador Miller told Dr. Ward as they watched the ships from the observatory. Something about your conversation spooked them badly. All I did was answer their questions honestly, she protested. Miller nodded sadly. Sometimes honesty is the most alien concept of all. The question now is, what's the worst that could happen if the Confederation decides humanity isn't ready for galactic society? Dr. Ward smiled slightly. Now you're thinking like a human. Above them, the Confederation ships began powering up. Their engines, their lights blinking in patterns that seemed somehow urgent, almost afraid. 3 days after the reception incident, the Confederation's diplomatic ship orbiting Earth was in a state of careful panic. Admiral Z. Hoon had called an emergency meeting with his senior staff and alien mind experts. The humans have been answering Cavex's question for 72 hours straight, reported Security Chief Vernix, her glowing skin patterns flashing with worry. They've made a document containing 12,487 worst-case scenarios for faster-than-light travel alone. They seem to be treating it as a fun thinking exercise. This is unheard of, stated mind expert Plinza, looking at the data. Most species think of 1 or 2 bad outcomes before mental safety blocks activate. Humans seem to lack this protective feature. The screen showed a video feed from the United Nations building, where Dr. Ward had gathered a team of scientists, engineers, and even fiction writers. They were eagerly drawing diagrams of scenarios involving everything from space tiers to time loops. A junior analyst named Joe Parker had taken the lead on a particularly troubling section labeled Possible Hostile Beings from Other Dimensions, Attracted by FTL Disturbances. We need to contain this, Admiral Z. Hoon decided. Start first contact cancellation steps. Chief Diplomat HTNR objected, sir. No species has ever been removed from the Confederation after formal introduction. The political fallout, is better than the alternative, interrupted Admiral Z. Hoon. These humans don't just imagine disaster, they organize it, sort it, and then look for solutions. Their approach to catastrophe is systematic. On the screen, Dr. Ward was now explaining something about weaponizing time loops as a defensive measure against what she called worst-case scenario number 7329. The Confederation representatives watched in horror as Joe Parker cheerfully added, "And if that fails, we could always try to talk with whatever comes through the rift. Maybe start diplomatic relations with beings from beyond spacetime?" "Diplomatic relations?" whispered Ejtinar. "With made-up hostile entities from beyond spacetime?" "Shut it down," ordered Admiral Z. Hoon. "Immediate withdrawal. Classify Earth as a Category X civilization." "Category X?" Vernex's skin light dimmed. "But that's reserved for existential threats to galactic stability." "Exactly," said Admiral Z. Hoon. "And tell all ships no further questions are to be asked of humans. Especially thinking questions, but it was already too late." Kavex, fascinated by human thought processes, had asked a follow-up question to a NASA engineer named Susan Hayes. What is the worst that could happen if humans gained access to Confederation technology? The question had gone viral on Earth's internet within hours. Discussion boards, social media, and news sites were filled with speculation. Scientists began organizing virtual conferences. Military strategists started drafting potential scenarios. Even children in schools were asked to draw pictures of what they thought alien technology might look like. "It's extraordinary," Dr. Ward told Ambassador Miller as they reviewed the global response. Kavex's question has sparked a worldwide brainstorming session. Miller looked less enthusiastic. The Confederation representatives have stopped responding to all communication attempts. Their ships have moved to a higher orbit, and they've activated some kind of energy field around themselves. "They're afraid of our ideas?" Dr. Ward asked. Surprised. "They're afraid of how quickly we generate them," Miller corrected. According to the cultural briefing, most Confederation species develop new concepts slowly, with careful consideration at each step. Our rapid-fire approach to possibility generation is alien to them. On screens around them, humans continue to enthusiastically discuss the worst that could happen with Confederation technology. In a lab in California, scientists were already sketching designs for theoretical devices based merely on the descriptions provided in the first contact materials. If their gravity manipulation works as described, a physicist named Alan Bennett was saying, pointing to equations, we could potentially adapt it for medical applications. Imagine targeted gravity fields for non-invasive surgery. His colleague, Dr. Natalie Foster, nodded excitedly. Or space habitat construction. We could create artificial gravity environments of any size and shape. In a military think tank across the country, analysts were considering different angles. Defensive applications would be the priority, stated General Brad Wilson. If there are hostile species out there, we need to be prepared. Ambassador Miller watched the feeds with growing concern. This is exactly what the Confederation warned about in their briefing materials. They explicitly stated that military applications should not be discussed until at least 50 years after first contact. But it's natural to consider all angles. Dr. Ward argued, how can we properly understand a technology if we don't consider all its implications, both good and bad? Miller's communication device chimed with an urgent message. The Confederation ships had begun powering up their main engines. They were preparing to leave Earth orbit. "We need to talk to them," Dr. Ward insisted. "Let me explain that this is just how humans process new information." "I don't think that will help," Miller replied grimly. "Their psychology is fundamentally different from ours. What we see as prudent preparation, they see as dangerous fixation on negative outcomes." Before they could discuss further, a global broadcast interrupted all Earth communications. Admiral Z. Hoon's image appeared on screens worldwide. "People of Earth," he began, his translation device giving his words a flat, emotionless quality. "The Galactic Confederation has determined that humanity is not yet ready for integration into the interstellar community. A quarantine field will be established around your solar system. Any attempt to breach this field will be considered hostile action. Stunned silence fell across Earth's communication centers. The quarantine will remain in place until your species evolves beyond its current cognitive patterns, continued Admiral Skatoon. Specifically, your collective tendency to imagine, analyze, and prepare for catastrophic outcomes is deemed potentially destabilizing to galactic peace. As the message concluded, the Confederation ships began to glow with an eerie blue light. Energy readings off the scale were detected by Earth's observatories. "They're creating some kind of barrier?" Dr. Ward whispered, watching the readings. "They're really going to lock us in our own solar system." Ambassador Miller sat down heavily. "This is unprecedented. No species has ever been quarantined after formal first contact." Dr. Ward was quiet for a moment, then a small smile formed on her lips. "So what's the worst that could happen now?" Miller looked at her with disbelief. "That's what got us into this mess." "No," Dr. Ward corrected. "It's what will get us out of it. If the Confederation thinks our way of thinking is dangerous, then they've just acknowledged it's powerful. They fear what we might do with their technology. Fine, let's show them what humans can do with just the concepts they've already shared." Around the world, as news of the quarantine spread, something unexpected happened. Instead of panic or despair, a wave of determination swept through humanity. The question, "What's the worst that could happen?" transformed into, "What's the best we can do about it?" Research teams that had been speculating about Confederation technology pivoted to studying the quarantine field itself. If it could be detected, it could be analyzed. If it could be analyzed, it could be understood. If it could be understood, perhaps it could be overcome. As the Confederation ships departed, leaving behind their energy barrier, they had no way of knowing they had just united humanity in a way nothing else ever had, giving them a shared challenge and, more dangerously, a shared mystery to solve. 1 month after the Confederation's hasty withdrawal from Earth, an emergency meeting of the Galactic Security Council gathered in the Proxima Centauri neutral zone. Representatives from all 4,287 member species attended, many breaking long-standing isolation rules to witness the proceedings. "The situation has gotten worse than we predicted," reported Grand Sentinel Y. X. Mal of the Monitoring Division. "Humans have set up what they call worst-case scenario think tanks across their planet. They're systematically working through every technology mentioned in our preliminary briefing materials. Holographic displays showed humans in various research facilities enthusiastically discussing concepts they couldn't possibly understand yet. A particularly troubling feed showed a group led by a scientist named Dr. Alan Bennett, exploring theoretical uses of the Confederation's gravity manipulation technology. What if we could create localized gravity wells as defensive perimeters? Dr. Bennett was saying, writing equations on a clear board. Oh, better yet, what if we could project them at a distance? His colleague, a weapons researcher named Patricia Rodriguez, nodded excitedly. Gravity projectiles? We could disrupt enemy ship systems without destroying them. Or completely crush them if necessary, added a military strategist named Kevin Lewis. But the real potential is in gravity wave communication. If we could change the waves correctly, we might achieve instant communication across any distance. The council chamber erupted in alarmed sounds from multiple species. They've independently thought of gravity wave communication, whispered Representative Colton of the Arcturian Assembly, a technology we only developed after 2,000 years of faster-than-light civilization. Admiral Z. Katehoon addressed the council grimly. The humans call this process brainstorming. They deliberately explore all possibilities, no matter how dangerous or unlikely, then filter for practicality afterward. Their creativity is ... constrained. But they lack the technical ability to implement these ideas, argued Representative Gbok of the Sirius Collective. They have no access to quantum folding materials or dimensional tools. Not yet, replied Admiral Z. Katehoon. But our alien anthropologist project They will develop primitive versions within decades rather than the thousands of years it took other species. They've already begun experiments based solely on the concept information in our briefing documents. The Council's attention turned to another feed, where a group at MIT led by Professor Daniel Wright was discussing theoretical approaches to Confederation shielding technology. If we understand the principles correctly, Professor Wright was saying, we could potentially create a portable version. Imagine personal shield generators for emergency services, allowing firefighters to walk through flames unharmed. His research assistant, Lisa Kelly, was typing rapidly. Or space exploration applications. A properly calibrated shield could allow us to explore Venus's surface or Jupiter's atmosphere directly. The medical applications are even more promising, added Dr. Natalie Foster. Targeted molecular shields could revolutionize surgery. The council chamber fell silent. We didn't include medical applications in the briefing, said xenopsychologist Plinza quietly. They extrapolated that independently. The containment problem is getting worse, stated Grand Sentinel YX Mal. Humans are now asking each other, what's the worst that could happen regarding the Confederation's decision to withdraw? They're developing theories about our motivations and capabilities based on minimal data. On the screen, a global security analyst named Frank Murray was presenting to the United Nations Security Council. Their abrupt withdrawal suggests either fear or strategic repositioning, he explained. Either way, we should speed up our defensive technology development. If they see us as a threat, we need to understand why. Admiral Z. Katehoon addressed the Galactic Security Council with grave finality. I propose a Category X isolation protocol for the Sol system. No contact, no observation, no passing ships within 1 light year. That's extremely drastic, objected Representative Gbok. No species has ever responded to first contact by immediately theorizing how to weaponize our core technologies either, interrupted Admiral Z. Katehoon. These humans don't just adapt technology, they transform it. They don't see limitations, they see untested possibilities. The vote was unanimous. Earth would be isolated, back on Earth, unaware of the Confederation's fears. Humanity had entered what historians would later call the innovation surge. The brief glimpse of alien technology had sparked a renaissance across all scientific fields. Dr. Olivia Ward had been appointed to lead the newly formed Extraterrestrial Technology Assessment Division, a global organization tasked with understanding the quarantine field and developing potential countermeasures. The field appears to suppress certain quantum states, Dr. Ward explained to world leaders in a virtual summit. It effectively prevents faster-than-light particles from forming, which is likely how their ships achieve interstellar travel. Can we break through it? Asked the Secretary General of the United Nations. Not yet, Dr. Ward admitted. But we're learning from it. By studying how it works, we're gaining insights into quantum mechanics that might have taken us centuries to discover on our own. Around the world, other breakthroughs were occurring. A team in Japan had developed a primitive gravity lens, based solely on theoretical principles mentioned in the Confederation briefing. Scientists in Brazil had created new medical imaging technology inspired by descriptions of alien sensor systems. It's like they gave us a dictionary without realizing it, explained Ryan Cooper, an astrophysicist who had become famous for his theory that the Confederation was actively monitoring Earth despite the quarantine. Just hearing the names of their technologies and a few basic principles has given us roadmaps for development. Dr. Ward's team had focused on another question entirely. If the Confederation feared human thought patterns, what other intelligent species might share those patterns? If humans weren't alone in their approach to problem-solving, perhaps they weren't alone in being quarantined. We need to look for signs of artificial barriers similar to the one around our solar system, she told her international team. If we can detect the technology signature from within our quarantine, we might be able to identify other imprisoned civilizations. The search began using Earth's most powerful telescopes and radio arrays, scanning for the unique energy signature of the quarantine field. For months, they found nothing, until a young astronomer named Ben Harris noticed something unusual in the data from the TRAPPIST system. "It's subtle, but there's definitely something there," he told Dr. Ward, showing her the readings. "The pattern matches our quarantine field, but it's much older, maybe thousands of years old." Dr. Ward studied the data carefully. "They've done this before," she whispered. "We're not the first species they've locked away." The discovery changed everything. Humanity was not alone in its quarantine, which meant there might be allies out. There are other species with thought patterns the Confederation found dangerous. If we can establish communication with these other quarantine civilizations, Dr. Ward proposed to the United Nations, we might be able to share knowledge, combine our understanding of the Confederation's technology. That assumes we can pierce the quarantine field enough to send and receive signals, the Secretary General noted. Dr. Ward smiled. "We're already working on it. We've been analyzing the field's fluctuations and believe there are natural weak points we can exploit." As the meeting concluded, Dr. Ward shared one final observation. The Confederation made a fundamental mistake in their approach to humanity. By showing us what they feared, our capacity to imagine and prepare for worst-case scenarios, they effectively told us our greatest strength. Then by quarantining us, they gave us a concrete problem to solve. "And nothing unites humans like a common challenge," the Secretary General added. "Exactly," Dr. Ward agreed. "They couldn't have designed a better accelerant for human innovation. If they'd tried?" Unknown to the humans, their efforts were being closely monitored. Despite the official quarantine, the Confederation had maintained hidden observation posts at the edge of the Sol system. The reports flowing back to the Galactic Security Council were causing increasing alarm. "They've already detected the weak points in the quarantine field," reported Commander Zivtor. "At their current rate of progress, they'll achieve limited communication capability within 5 years and possibly develop primitive faster-than-light travel within 20. Admiral Z. Kate-Hoon received the news with grim resignation. "And they've discovered the TRAPPIST quarantine zone?" "Yes, Admiral. They're actively searching for others now." The implications were clear. The quarantine had not stopped humanity's dangerous thought patterns, it had focused them. 5 years after Earth's isolation, an alarm activated in the Confederation's perimeter monitoring station, orbiting the dwarf planet Eris at the edge of Sol's heliosphere. Commander Zivtor of the Quarantine Enforcement Division jolted awake. From hibernation as the system announced, "Anomaly detected. Earth origin signal penetrating isolation barrier." The monitoring screen showed something impossible, a focused transmission of modulated gravity waves coming from Earth, punching through the Confederation's suppression field like it wasn't even there. "How?" demanded Commander Zivtor. "They shouldn't have gravity wave technology for at least 3 centuries. "Unknown, Commander," replied the station's AI. "The modulation pattern suggests deliberate communication rather than a natural phenomenon or accidental discovery." The gravity wave transmission contained a simple message repeating in multiple formats, mathematical sequences, binary code, and finally, in clear Confederation standard language. "We know you're out there. We would like to talk." Responding. "With gravity wave transmission will not be considered an aggressive act." "How do they know our communication protocols?" whispered Lieutenant Casvalen. "The isolation barrier should block all Confederation signatures." Commander Zivtor's breathing apparatus hissed with increased stress. "They've been observing us while we've been observing them. Notify High Command immediately. This quarantine has been broken." Within hours, the Confederation Security Council convened an emergency session. Admiral Z. Kate-Hoon, now promoted to Grand Marshal of Containment Forces, reviewed the disturbing reports. "The humans have developed not only gravity wave communication, but also quantum-entangled observation systems that our barriers can't detect," he informed the grim-faced council. "We've confirmed they're monitoring at least 12 of our perimeter stations." "Impossible," declared Representative Gbok. "Their technological development curve would need to be accelerated by a factor of 50, at minimum," completed Grand Marshal Z. Kate-Hoon. "Yet here we are. Our mind experts believe their worst-case scenario thinking pattern is responsible." They imagined we might be monitoring them, developed theoretical methods to detect our observation posts, and then built the technology to confirm their theories. The council chamber erupted in concerned murmurs. "There's more," continued Z. Kate Hoon. "We've intercepted their internal communications. They've started something called Project Lighthouse, an attempt to make contact with any and all advanced civilizations. They're broadcasting across multiple spectrums using methods we haven't even considered." "Why would they do this?" asked Representative Colton. "Don't they understand the dangers of attracting attention from unknown species?" "Oh, they understand completely," replied Z. Kate Hoon with a grim laugh. "They've compiled an extensive database of possible hostile alien scenarios. They call it the Cosmic Threat Assessment. It's thousands of pages long and includes theoretical defense strategies for each scenario. On the display, the Council could see evidence of massive construction projects in Earth orbit. Solar-powered? Satellites, space habitats, and what appeared to be defensive platforms were being assembled at an alarming rate. "They're preparing for every possible outcome," explained xenopsychologist Plinza, "including the possibility that we might take hostile action to reinforce their isolation. Their what's the worst that could happen thinking pattern has evolved into something even more powerful. They now ask, what's the best way to prepare for the worst?" At that moment, an urgent communication interrupted the council session. The quarantine fleet stationed at the edge of the Sol system reported multiple small, stealth human vessels had bypassed their perimeter. The vessels were accelerating to speeds that should have been impossible with human technology. "How many breached the perimeter?" demanded Z. Kate Hoon. "Unknown," came the reply. "Our sensors only detected them after they activated some form of experimental drive beyond the heliopause. We're tracking 12 vessels, but there could be more." 12 vessels, muttered Z. Kate Hoon. 12 different directions. "They're performing a systematic search pattern." "The human vessels are broadcasting a message," added the fleet commander. "It states, 'We come seeking friendship and knowledge exchange, but we are prepared for alternatives.'" The implications were clear. The quarantine had failed. The humans were loose in the galaxy. Back on Earth, in the headquarters of the United Earth Space Initiative, Dr. Olivia Ward was addressing the Global Council. Her hair had more gray now, but her eyes still held the same determined spark from 5 years ago. "Expedition Fleet Alpha has successfully breached the quarantine barrier," she announced to thunderous applause. "All 12 ships have achieved faster-than-light transition and are proceeding to their designated coordinates." The screens behind her showed the trajectories of the 12 vessels, each heading toward a different star system where they had detected signs of quarantine fields similar to Earth's. "Our primary mission remains peaceful contact," Dr. Ward reminded the Council. "We seek alliance with other isolated civilizations and, if possible, diplomatic relations with the Confederation itself." "And if the Confederation responds with hostility?" asked the Secretary General. Dr. Ward's expression hardened slightly. "Then we implement contingency protocols. Each ship carries complete data on all our technological developments and defensive capabilities. If any ship is threatened, it will share this information with any intelligent civilization it encounters. The Confederation's attempt to contain human innovation will become the very means by which it spreads throughout the galaxy." In the 5 years since the quarantine began, humanity had made technological leaps that might have taken centuries under normal circumstances. Studying the quarantine field had led to breakthroughs in quantum physics. Reverse engineering the glimpsed Confederation technology had accelerated material science and energy generation, but perhaps most significantly, the discovery of other quarantine civilizations had given humanity a purpose. They were no longer alone in their isolation, and the possibility of making contact with alien species who shared their cognitive approach had united Earth's nations in unprecedented cooperation. The Trappist expedition should reach their destination within 3 months. Dr. Ward continued. "Based on the age and complexity of their quarantine field, we believe they may have been isolated for over 2,000 years. Imagine what they might have developed in that time. Ryan Cooper, now director of the Xenocivilization Detection Program, added, "If our theories are correct, the Confederation has been systematically quarantining species with certain cognitive traits for millennia. They may have inadvertently created a shadow network of civilizations that could rival their own power." As the meeting continued, alarm systems suddenly activated throughout the facility. Urgent reports began flooding in from observation posts throughout the solar system. "Multiple Confederation vessels have entered the system," announced the defense coordinator. "They've penetrated the outer perimeter and are approaching Earth at high velocity. Their weapon systems appear to be active." Dr. Ward remained calm. "Activate planetary defense grid. Deploy orbital shield platforms and prepare the diplomatic channel." "Diplomatic channel?" the Secretary General asked. "They appear to be launching an attack. Perhaps?" Dr. Ward nodded. "Or perhaps they finally realized that quarantine isn't a solution. Either way, we should give them the opportunity to talk before things escalate." She turned to address the communications officer. "Send this message on all frequencies, including gravity wave, to the Galactic Confederation. We acknowledge your arrival in our system. We remain open to peaceful dialogue and mutual understanding. However, we are prepared for less favorable scenarios. The choice is yours." As the message was transmitted, the defense screens showed the approaching Confederation fleet suddenly slowing its advance. The Lid vessel, massive compared to the others, had changed course slightly, heading directly toward the Earth orbital platform where Dr. Ward's team was stationed. "They're responding," the communications officer announced with surprise. "Text only in standard Earth English." The message appeared on the main screen, simple and direct. "Request immediate communication with the human designated as Olivia Ward, the Galactic Security. Council acknowledges the failure of quarantine protocol and proposes alternative arrangements." Dr. Ward allowed herself a small smile. "Well," she said quietly, "I guess we've finally got their attention." 20 years after Earth's quarantine breach, the Great Hall of Reconciliation on the neutral world of Epsilon Eridani II was filled to capacity. Representatives from the Confederation sat on one side, while the newly formed Terran Alliance occupied the other. After years of tense standoffs, secret operations, and narrowly avoided conflicts, both sides had agreed to formal talks. Grand Marshal Z. Kate Hoon, now in the final cycle of his long life, faced the human delegation led by Ambassador Olivia Ward, the same scientist whose innocent answer about worst-case scenarios had started everything 2 decades earlier. She had aged, her once dark hair now silver, but her eyes still held the same curious intensity. "Before we begin," said Z. Kate Hoon, "I must ask, how did you develop gravity wave technology so quickly?" "Our models suggested it would take your species centuries," Ambassador Ward smiled. "When you asked what was the worst that could happen and then immediately left Earth, we had to consider why. The most logical explanation was that our way of thinking somehow frightened you. That made us examine our thought processes more closely." "Your worst-case scenario planning?" nodded Z. Kate Hoon. "Exactly," continued Ward. "We realize this approach gives us an advantage. We consider possibilities others might dismiss as too unlikely or too dangerous to think about. Once we understood this was our strength, we formalized the process. Every technological challenge was approached with the question, what's the worst that could happen if we don't solve this quickly?" The human delegation included Ryan Cooper, now Director of Alien Technology Integration, whose observation about alien concealment had spurred Earth's search for Confederation monitoring stations. "Your isolation barrier was actually helpful," Director Cooper explained. "It created a detectable energy signature that gave us something to study. From there, we worked backward to understand the principles behind it." Skune's translator conveyed his astonishment. "You used our containment technology to develop your countermeasures?" "It's what humans do," said Ambassador Ward with a slight shrug. "We adapt. When faced with an obstacle, we don't just try to overcome it. We try to understand it, learn from it, and ultimately improve upon it." The terms of the proposed Terran Accord were revolutionary by Confederation standards. Instead of Earth joining as a subordinate member, the humans proposed a partnership of equals, with mutual technology exchange and collaborative research projects. "You must understand our concerns," said Representative Gbok. "Your species develops military applications alongside peaceful ones for every technology." "Of course we do," acknowledged Ward. "Because we always ask, what's the worst that could happen?" finished ZK Hoon. "I remember. But that same question leads us to develop safeguards, fail-safes, and ethical frameworks," added Dr. Eric Simmons, Earth's Director of Ethical Technology Implementation. "We prepare for the worst while working toward the best." The negotiations continued for days, with detailed discussions of technology sharing, cultural exchange, and security protocols. The humans were surprisingly open about their capabilities, which the Confederation discovered were both more and less advanced than feared. Their faster-than-light drive was crude but innovative. Their weapons technology was concerning but limited in scope. Their medical technology, however, had surpassed Confederation standards in several areas. Perhaps most significant was what had happened after the quarantine breach. The 12 ships that escaped the Sol system had indeed made contact with other quarantine civilizations. The oldest, in the TRAPPIST system, had been isolated for over 3,000 years and had developed remarkable technological solutions of their own. "The Varen of TRAPPIST-1E were initially cautious," explained Ambassador Ward. "They had been quarantined for so long they had almost forgotten there were other intelligent species in the galaxy. But when they realized we shared their approach to problem-solving, a natural alliance formed." "And the others?" asked ZK Hoon. 6 of the 12 quarantine systems contained active civilizations," Ward replied. "Each had developed along different technological paths during their isolation, but all shared certain cognitive traits: curiosity, creativity, and yes, a tendency to explore worst-case scenarios. Together we formed what we call the Free Systems Alliance." The Confederation delegates exchanged concerned glances. The implications were clear. Their policy of quarantining species they deemed potentially dangerous had created exactly what they had feared: a network of advanced civilizations united by their common experience of isolation. "We don't seek conflict," Ward assured them, reading their concern, but we will not accept further attempts at containment. The Free Systems Alliance is proposing open exchange and cooperation with the Confederation, but as equals, not as subjects. On the final day, as the accord was prepared for signing, Kavex, now a senior diplomat, approached Ambassador Ward. "I must apologize," said Kavex. "My question 20 years ago caused significant disruption to your species' development path." Ward laughed warmly. "On the contrary, it accelerated it. Sometimes the right question is more valuable than any answer." The signing ceremony began with Grand Marshal ZK Hoon making a final address to the assembled delegates. "Today marks a new chapter in galactic history. The integration of humans and the other free system civilizations into the wider cosmic community will undoubtedly bring challenges, but also unprecedented opportunities. Their unique cognitive approach, this worst-case scenario planning, initially alarmed us. Now we recognize it as a valuable perspective our Confederation has lacked." He turned to face the human delegation directly. "Your species' ability to imagine disaster does not, as we feared, make you dangerous. Rather, it makes you uniquely prepared for the unpredictable nature of our universe. You plan for catastrophe not because you desire it, but because you are determined to prevent it." Ambassador Ward nodded in acknowledgement. "That's precisely why we believe the Confederation and the Free Systems Alliance can complement each other. Your caution balances our creativity. Your stability balances our drive for change. Together we can achieve more than either could alone." The Terran Accord was signed, establishing a new relationship between the ancient Confederation and the emerging alliance. The first collaborative project would be a comprehensive survey of the galaxy, searching for other civilizations that might have been prematurely judged and isolated. As the ceremony concluded, a new protocol was distributed throughout Confederation space. It contained only one directive, classified as a primary civilization interaction guideline, When engaging with human representatives or those of the Free Systems Alliance, under no circumstances ask them, "What's the worst that could happen?" Their answer will inevitably change your understanding of the possible. In diplomatic academies across the galaxy, this became known simply as the human warning. Yet, even as the new era of cooperation began, both the Confederation and the Alliance knew that somewhere in the vast darkness between the stars, other intelligences watched and waited. Some would be friendly, some hostile, and many simply alien beyond current understanding, but thanks to humanity's unique, cognitive approach, the ability to imagine and prepare for the worst, while hoping and working for the best, the civilizations of the galaxy were better prepared for whatever might come. As Ambassador Ward prepared to return to Earth, Grand Marshal Z. Kate Hoon approached her one final time. "I have one last question," he said, his translator conveying a tone of genuine curiosity. "After all that has happened, the quarantine, the escape, the formation of your alliance, what do you humans think is the worst that could happen next?" Ward smiled. "That's simple. The worst that could happen is that we stop asking that question.